My fault.
So anyway, how's everybody doing this evening?
Oh, I know that song.
Connie's probably listened to it 100 times in the last 48 hours.
It's drilled in my brain now.
Dude, someone called in the Kenny show asking about the bells. I thought that was kind of funny. You know,
Man, I know it, right? I'm like, whoa.
The bells are from Shaitan or something like that. But then,
Shaitan's pipe.
Yeah, but then you have Muhammad hearing his revelation through the bells or whatever. It's like,
jeez, I know it, man. It's so sickening. You know, it's what Jesus said to some of the Pharisees and Sadducees: "You err, not knowing the Scriptures." And they want to say, "Oh no, the Scriptures are corrupted." So, man, they just cut off their left and right foot and right arm and left arm. Didn't they, Issa?
All right, here we go, folks. All right, Kufar Akbar, everybody. Hi, this is another edition of Radio Free Kafiristan. This is, of course, a radio program dedicated to rightly dividing the truth between Christianity and Islam. We examine the evidence for both of these faiths in order to arrive at the truth. It leads us to this end. Thus go I. Shalom, peace, and blessings. Of course, this is your humble host, Eric Sekifer, coming to you live from the cavernous depths of the Kafir Cave in Dar al-Harb, Kafiristan. We are here every Tuesday night on the Global Patriot Radio Network from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we are also live casting through StreamYard we're live casting onto the Crossing the Crescent Facebook page and the Dr. Eric Smith Facebook page, and of course here on YouTube with the Crossing the Crescent discussion group is what we call it. Remember, a kafir is someone who does not heed the beliefs and prescriptions held by the religion of Islam, of course, according to the New Encyclopedia of Islam. And Kafiristan is Dar al-Harb, which is the house of war. This is the land that is not ruled by the Sharia. And oh boy, I want to mention something about that. I was going through this the other night because I have no life. And I was going through here, and it caused me to I spent the good part of the morning doing another search, but I'll get to that in future shows. And what I found here, I think I mentioned this on Sunday, and I just want to repeat it tonight. There's a section in here that deals with divorce. The Sharia encompasses quite a bit of just about every facet of life. And of course, it covers marriage and the processes for divorce. And then it also talks about who you can and who you cannot marry. And it says down here in section N12 or division N12.0, in the title of this, now listen to this title, just on page 575. It says, becoming unmarriageable kin by suckling, or rida. In other words, it is defining whether a woman is marriageable to you as an individual, as a man. And if this person was found to have suckled you as an infant, that person you would not be eligible to marry that person, which, okay, I'm down with that struggle. I get it. But lo and behold, I turned the page to 576, and here's what it says in 1A. It says the milk comes from a female at least, get this, 9 years old. I kid you not.
Jeez.
What?
My goodness. Her paps aren't even working yet. Jeez.
Okay. Now listen, this is the worst part. This
sick.
is the worst part. It gets worse. Hold on. Now, whether or not it says whether it is occasioned by sexual intercourse or something else. Think about that.
Wait. Are we talking about cows here? Are we talking about livestock?
No,
we're talking about human beings.
Okay.
Yeah, 9-year-old cows. I can believe that.
If it was a cow, you're not looking for a wife out in the herd, okay?
Well, okay, we're talking about, come on, man. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, let's not go there.
Okay,
I know I've seen the videos too, with drones going by, and I get it.
You were there. You witnessed it firsthand.
No.
And fatwas. There's fatwas on this. But anyway, we're getting in the gutter, so let's get out of the gutter, Rad.
I know, and it just, I just when I was reading this, I was just, are you kidding me?
Read that last sentence again.
What book is this in?
I'm sorry.
What Islamophobic book is this in?
The Reliance of the Traveler. Sharia.
This is the Sharia. Islamic Jurisprudence Manual for Islamic Law, the Sharia.
Oh, an Islamophobic book. Okay.
It is. An Islamophobic book that is endorsed by Al-Azhar University and the 4 main schools of Islamic thought, of course. Okay, let me read it one more time, and then we'll get away from this. Because how do we get into this? We were talking about the Sharia, lands not ruled by the Sharia. So this would be part of those lands ruled by Sharia. For goodness sakes. The milk comes from a female at least 9 years old, whether it is occasioned by sexual intercourse or something else.
What would something else be?
What the hell is something else?
I know.
Well, they had wet nurses at that time. So if they were going to have a 9-year-old girl, I don't just, okay.
Either Muslims really couldn't do math back in that day. Either Muslims couldn't do math back in the day, like count the years, or they have just some really messed up ideas back then. You know what I mean? Or some really weird, I don't know, maybe there was something in that Zamzam water. Who knows, man?
I'm trying to think of any culture in the history of the world that would codify something like that. And I understand that, in our colonial period, we had minimum marrying ages of 7 in some of the colonies. And I get that, you say, ooh, isn't that yicky? Yeah. But when you're considering the legalities for, property ownership and passing down, if you're a dad and you only have 3 daughters and you want to make sure that your property is passed down, because people didn't live as long back then, want to make sure your property is passed down to her, you would have that girl marry somebody, not 53
see, that's how they try to justify it. I mean, why would you even need to be married? I mean, you've got aunts and uncles and cousins and other things, and sometimes grandma and grandfathers are still alive. They're trying to justify the marriage of a 9-year-old.
Right. What they're doing is they're trying to justify the sickness of that, and how the rest of the world recognizes how disgusting that really is.
Yeah, and this is just like the secular world even notices that. You can tell an atheist this, and they'll go, "Gross, get away from me." An atheist.
You can tell a child that, and a child would recognize.
There you go. Oh yeah.
Everybody throughout all time would recognize that is just something wrong to do. You just do not do that. And I've mentioned this several times on this show. The job of a man is to defend the children and the women, not to exploit them.
That's right.
Especially when you're my age, that desire to defend and protect is magnified. It is expounded. It becomes more, I don't say more obsessive for you, but you want to protect your children. When you're a dad, you have that instinct, but as you get older, that instinct, for me anyway, when having the grandchildren, has grown even stronger. And to see somebody my age even glance at one of my grandchildren like that,
just make sure you keep them away from Joe Biden.
That's just because you're redeemed and washed by the blood of the Almighty God.
Yeah, well, but see, the thing is, you would think, but the law of God is written on our hearts. Romans chapter 1 clearly tells us that. This is natural theology. We know the difference between right and wrong. You intuitively know that is wrong, and to listen to people try to justify this relationship that Muhammad had with Aisha, it's really maddening. It really is. It drives you insane, because you cannot believe that somebody is that blinded to what should be an innate, something that they would know intuitively in their heart is just simply wrong, and yet they sit there and they justify it.
At least the Sunnis do. The Shia can't stand all that doctrine of Abu Bakr and Omar and all that.
Yeah, they hate them.
You know. Oh yeah. So we're kind of like Christian Shias, because we're trying to wake up the Sunnis and go, look at this stuff. Why are you defending this stuff, whereas Shias won't?
Well, actually, Shias are just as perverted.
I know. I'm not going there right now. I'm not going there. I'm just talking about the Sunnis right now, because there's more Sunnis than Shia.
Sunnis are Muslims on crack or meth, and Shia are like hippie Muslims smoking weed. I'm serious. I mean, seriously, they're all laid back.
Gotta love Brad.
How do you come up with these analogies? Eric. I don't know. What are you thinking about when you come up with these analogies? Well, those Sunnis, I mean, they're like some meth heads, but, you know.
Serious, man. No, seriously.
You know, they're just like seriously. And smoking some weed.
Seriously, no. Well, think of all the Sunnis we deal with. They're all like hopped up on the talk weed, you know, or whatever.
The talk weed, that's a good one.
And then you got the you know, the Shia. If you ever deal with Shia, they really are all laid back. They're just like, yeah, they talk really soft too, you know. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I've had a Shia friend from my past life, and you know, he worked at Denny's. He was a cook, and he was pretty laid back too. But
exactly, they are.
Whereas my ex-husband was like, well, no, you have to go through, you know, the courts and the thingy like that, and he's like, no. But he was laid back. He was more laid back.
Don't get me wrong. Shias are just as bat crap crazy. They'll chop your head off in a second. You know, just look at Najaf. They got no problem doing the doing. But still, they'll do it with a smile. They'll do it with a smile.
Yeah, Ayatollah Khomeini. I think was it Adam or John? John, one of you two guys brought on that story of what the Ayatollah had done to it was a 5 or 6 year old girl.
It was Adam.
I think Hussein.
Was it John?
No. I'm John.
No, it was Adam. Adam introduced that. Yeah.
Adam or Hussein? I don't know.
Adam.
Okay, yeah. Well, one of the two did, and I was listening to the story that he was. No. They played the video clip. That's right. They played the video. It was Steve. Yeah, Steve Hussein. Yeah, he had played a video clip of that. They're discussing this, and you're just like, how can people with any sense of decency think that way? And it's mind-boggling. Okay, so let's try to get to some good news, like, I don't know, the gospel message. How's that? We're going to talk about tonight the reliability of the gospels. I was listening to a past broadcast from September of 2018 on Blog Talk Radio, where the Imam Kenny Momer was on, and Brad and I have gone back and forth about some of the things that were said on that the last couple of days. And one of the things that people like himself, people who do dawah, people who are Islamic polemicists towards Christianity, they attack the validity of the gospel. And if you listen to what he talks about when he refers to the gospels, he will return the writing of the gospel. He's always referring to the anonymity of the gospel writers. And when you hear somebody say, well, those gospel writers were anonymous, we don't know who wrote the gospels. And there was a guy that I've debated before. His name is Nimatullah something. And that was one of his constant rants is, you know, the gospel according to Mark, the gospel according to Matthew, we don't know. It's just the gospel according to. So what I want to do today is I want to take a look at what evidence do we have for this, or for the validity of the authorship of the Gospels. So I put together this little slideshow today because, again, I have no life. But I wanted to answer some of these questions or the objections that are often made. We don't know who wrote the Gospels. The Gospel writers were anonymous. And of course, the old mantra that there's no surviving originals. Well, the quick answer is yes, we do know who wrote the Gospels. That's number one. Number two, the writers were not completely anonymous. And I'm going to discuss today why that is. Because when we start saying, well, they were anonymous, yes, in the Gospels themselves, they never say, I, Luke, under my hand, am writing this Gospel. Or I.
And they don't have to, They don't have to.
Yeah, exactly right, Connie. They don't have to.
Yep,
But this
they do not have to.
This is a demand being placed on the Bible that they themselves would not be placed on themselves.
So what?
And then lastly, they don't look at why don't we have any originals?
2,000 years. 2,000 years. I mean, Islam can't even. I know. But Islam can't even show their, in the 7th century. My goodness, this chides my chaff right here.
The hypocrisy of it, yeah.
Man, it really does.
It does. Yeah,
but anyway, I'm sorry.
No, the hypocrisy is what angers me more than anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through how we know who wrote what. So, number one, when we start talking about the reliability, I got to get this off here. Hold on. So this bottom thing here shows up. There we go. When we look at how we can trust the New Testament manuscripts, when we start talking about ancient works of literature, if you look at this chart, when we look at, let's say, Plato being written, in the the 5th century BC, and the earliest copy we have of him is 1,200 years old, for crying out loud.
Wow.
That is a long space of time. You look at Tacitus writing around 100 AD. The earliest copy is 1,000 years. Now look at the number of copies we have: 28. We look at Aristotle. He's writing in the 4th century BC, 1,400 years from the time that he writes to the earliest copy. And we have 49 of those. But look at down here, Homer. Now, Homer, when we talk about Homer that's from an oral tradition. But the earliest copy, extant copy we have is 500 years from that. And we can make a comparison of the 640. We have 643 copies of that with a 95% accuracy rate. But then you get to the Gospel, the New Testament. So this mantra, you don't have any originals. You don't have any early copies. The Council of Nicaea, shut your pie holes. When you look at the number of copies, 5,686, that's just Greek New Testament manuscripts. That doesn't include the Latin. That doesn't include the Syriac. That doesn't include all the other languages that it was written in. That's just the Greek. If you add up the other ones, it comes around 25,000 copies. But the earliest copy we have, is a document called Q. And this Q document was written, Rad, are you paying attention? And this Q document was written in Aramaic, don't you see? And Rad, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, that's interesting. The Q. We can discuss that later. But yeah,
no. Tell us now. Why is that problematic?
Okay,
tell us that now. Why is that problematic?
Okay, all right. Now, hold on. Let me preface this. I'm trying to be nice to certain individuals. I really am, because somebody plays something on my heart, blah, blah, blah. But I'm still going to call this out. I don't know if he still believes this. Actually, I should join his show to ask if he still believes this. I was actually shocked to read this. So what happened was, Kufar here sends me a link to my first time meeting him, which, by the way, thank you, Kenny, for introducing me to Eric, because seriously, you were the reason why we met, why I met Kelly, why we met Elizabeth, why we met all these people, these great Christians.
Kenny.
Seriously, big heart, dude, because seriously, it all revolves around you, this bad interactions we've all had with you. Seriously, you're like the black hole. You know what I mean? But anyway.
Yeah, there for a long time, I felt like an island out there on my own.
Anyway,
he's like we come.
He's like this boss we had that I had when I working at this one job, where I thought I was the only one that had a file of all these inappropriate chat messages and text messages. And then when I finally had enough and I complained, they're like, "You're not the only one." And it turns out I got her fired, but everybody had this. You know what I mean? I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, he shares with me my first interaction with him, where I called in his radio show, okay, because it's all about Kenny, and I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to my voice, which I hate, contrary to what other people believe, and I hear myself say, emails that I emailed him. I honestly don't remember emailing him. I didn't. I thought my only interaction was with him on Facebook, and that was very brief because he sent me to block Pakistan. So I go to Google search and I search the emails, and I find them from that time period. And let me pull this up here. Hold on a second. Oh, you should have told me you were going to bring this up because, actually, no, I sent them to you. So yeah. No. I actually.
But it's in my email.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. All right.
I have to go through digging through 50 files. Sorry.
No, I got it. It's right here. Okay, here we go. Peace and blessings be upon you. This is from Kenny.
Okay, share your screen. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, give me a second here. Well, yeah, I'm just going to share my email, but no, that's okay.
Chris is telling you, come on, Rad, get it together.
Oh, put on the spot here. Share screen.
Chris, please extend our condolences from the show to your friend. The reason why Chris isn't with us tonight is because he's with a friend whose dad unexpectedly died today. But the good news is that he was a believer, and we should rejoice. But just as we always do, we always feel that selfishness.
Well, may your friend's dad be 3 days in heaven before the devil knows he's missing. Traditional Irish toast. Anyway,
there you go.
Yeah. So no, that is sadness. But I thought you were going to say the good news is that his father was extremely wealthy and he inherited $1 billion. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm gallows humor. Sorry about that. That was inappropriate. But anyway. So let's read over this. So basically, what happened in his Facebook interaction is he said for me to email him to set up a debate topic, and then he blocked me. So I sent him an email. I'm like, dude, you blocked me, but so here's the email. Anyway, so let's read over this here real quick. And there was some back and forth interaction. Okay. But so basically, peace and blessings be upon you. I encourage you to look up Q. Notice it's in quotes. It is the earliest known fragment of any of the 25,000 manuscripts of the New Testament. It's about the size of a credit card. And it's from the book of John. It was written in Aramaic.
You're right. Yeah.
You said, prove it. Show me one Aramaic or Hebrew manuscript or even fragment that predates the Greek manuscripts and fragments. No. I'm so wrong on all of this. I have just done that, he says. It doesn't require me providing you a long list of scholars to support the fact. But I encourage you to read Misquoting Jesus, which I did. Funny story on Misquoting Jesus. I bought it, and I was halfway through it, and I thought Bart Ehrman was arguing for the validity of the scriptures. Because if you read the first half of it, okay, it really is arguing for it. I mean, yeah, there's all, you know what I'm saying? But then he just changes his conclusions like halfway through. You're like, what? Where are you coming up with this now? You know what I mean?
Well, he's like, yeah. The Gospels can be well attested to Gospels. We have manuscripts. There are very few variants compared to the number of manuscripts we had. But I hate it. I don't believe it at all. That's his conclusion.
his conclusion does not match.
So you gave him proof, and then he asked for proof, right?
Well, no. I asked him for proof of this. Okay, but this is what is here. So Bart Ehrman's was how Jesus became God. Listen to this. I also encourage you to read any books of Dr. James White, which I do have a few of his. Very good. The King James Controversy I have, or I used to have, as well as the Forgotten Trinity, or whatever. Very good read as well. Scholars are unanimous. They're unanimous. The gospel writing Q. And so I encourage you to look into this matter. If you would like to debate the name of Jesus, Isa, then I propose debate. Let's do it. That never happened. But if you address,
well, they tried it. You wanted to do it on the show. I remember you came on the show because you wanted to do it, and you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't have anything to do with it. You were a foul individual.
Well, I am, but I wasn't to him at that point in time. I'm just saying I was being nice. I'm thinking, dude, I'm actually being nice to you. Okay, you know what I mean?
You have been nice lately.
Oh,
I've even noticed that, Rad.
I have my moments. Just I'm like the weather. Just.
Oh, I know you have your moments.
It's like the weather in Chicago. Just wait a second. But anyway, okay. But if you address me disrespectfully and step off in any step of the way, I will not engage you. I have no interest in engaging in after school bullying tactics. But,
notice how he tries to. Notice how he always tries to set the tone. If you treat me with any amount of disrespect, forget the fact that the way I treat you. Forget the fact of the way I speak to you, or how I disrespect your script.
Call you a human pig.
You do it to me. Oh no.
Yeah.
Swine of a human guy.
Oh, he's swine of a human kind. But anyway, let's go back to Q. What is that? I've never heard of this.
Okay,
Eric.
Can
you educate?
You want me to, or you want to
Eric?
take it?
I can do it.
Doesn't
let
matter.
me do it. Okay. Q is a hypothesis by many scholars, not all scholars, but many scholars, is a hypothesized gospel from which Mark and Matthew drew their gospels themselves. So you would have Q up here. Whoops, here we go. Q, and then Mark gets his information from Q, and Matthew gets his information from Q. Now, I'm not sure if Luke is included in that anywhere, but that is a theory. Now, what Kenny is talking about here.
Who cares about theory?
Well, no. Yeah, well, okay. Listen to what he says about. Oops. Let me get up here. Where'd it go? Add to stream. I took it off. Okay. Where he said, where did he put it? From the book of John, it's the size of a credit card. See, he doesn't even know what the heck he's talking about or what he's opining about here. What he's talking about is P52, an ancient, not Aramaic, not a Hebrew.
Oh, I love that one.
It is the oldest. It's called the Ryland manuscript. It's the oldest manuscript that we have, extant manuscript of the New Testament. Comes from John chapter 17. I can't remember which chapter.
It's a very important passage, actually. It's a very important passage. But
that comes from that. That one is about the size of the credit card. So think about this. He is making demands upon Rad about a topic he knows nothing about. He is demonstrating his abject ignorance to Rad, and at the same time asking him to be respect him as some type of scholar or some type of somebody that is a willful or a noble foe or a quantifiable foe. When he's sitting there talking down and condescending to Rad, saying, "You don't know anything. You don't know anything about the New Testament. I know more about your."
There you go. No.
Are you kidding me?
Here's the thing. To be fair to Kenny, again, this was from September of 2018. This is at a time when Kenny, the Muslims, I think, have actually educated, the real Muslims that he's now encountering on YouTube have actually educated him to what Islam really is. I've noticed kind of a change in that. He no longer denies certain fundamental tenets, even though he tried to play around with one of them the other day, but now he quickly got called back on that one. Anyway, so maybe his opinion has changed on that, as well as the Gospel Barnabas, where he realizes, that's kind of stupid. Should not probably say that. You know what I mean? In other words,
we got time today. I'm going to play that.
Well, in other words, remember, they always accuse us of going to Islamophobic websites, hater websites, atheist websites, blah blah blah, right? And just getting this information, not actually getting the books or reading the text, right? You know what I mean? When he just proves that he actually did just, what he was accused of, like when he does with the gospel Barnabas and this thing. But real quick, I want to kind of correct you or give some more information, not correct you. But on the Q,
I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't mind.
No. You're
like most people don't care if I'm wrong. Well, I do care if I'm wrong, but I don't mind people correct me if I am wrong.
I use the incorrect word, so I need to be corrected on that. But no, just add information to this Q theory. So what the Q theory is, okay, is that the book of Mark was written first, okay, and then you have Luke, okay, and Matthew, okay, come along. And they have actual parallel passages, okay, almost word for word in some instances, okay. Mm-hmm. So clearly, that, as a matter of fact, okay, yeah. So, but some of them agree with Mark, okay. So therefore, they say, well, Mark was the source, okay. Like they have this library, like these ancient scribes, and you know what I mean, have this library that they can just sit there, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, like they're doing research on the internet and just copying and pasting. But anyway, so where they're in agreement like this with these parallel passages, clearly, and it's not found in Mark, clearly they're getting it from the Q document because they're getting it from someplace else. And where they're original, so basically, it's like, wait a second, they can't be telling the same things, okay? I'm sorry, let me take that back. Let me correct myself. So clearly where the passages match each other, they say, well, clearly this means that Luke was copying from Matthew, because Luke came later, right? Or Matthew came later and was copying from Luke.
Here,
but where the passages disagree.
There you go.
Right. Okay, yeah. So where they disagree.
Right, okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, where they disagree, okay, with each other, and is not found in Mark, okay, therefore that must come from another source, which they call Q. In other words, they look at this, these atheistic secular scholars look at this, and they can't allow for original writing. Like somehow a writer that writes something totally different from his source. Like if you were writing a term paper, I shouldn't say term paper, God, I'm so 8th grade. But no, if you were writing a scholarly paper and you're quoting and copying, doing quotes and copying and pasting from somebody else, and then you write your own original words, okay? All of a sudden now you are now copying and pasting from another source that we don't know about. Do you see how that doesn't fit? Okay, how that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But they don't allow for that. In other words, where Mark and Luke differ from, where Matthew and Luke differ from each other and differ from Mark, that clearly has to be taken from another document called Q. It can't be original source. It can't be original ideas. It can't be original eyewitness testimony that the others did not have. It has to be taken from someplace else.
And this is all to coincide with the later development, this ideology that was taught in the late. I know it was taught in the late 19th. Early and mid 20th century, but modern scholarship is pushing those dates back, and the reason why those dates of the gospel writings were pushed post 70 AD is because they number one, they have in them a description where Christ makes a prophecy that the Jewish temple will be destroyed. Forget the fact that it isn't mentioned anywhere else. It's just that one prophecy. So since that one prophecy did in fact come true, the dates of those gospels, those fourfold gospels, must post-date 70 AD. However, when we start backing those dates up, when we start looking at those dates, for an example, Acts ends with Paul's imprisonment in Rome. Well, since it ends with Paul's imprisonment in Rome, we know that Paul was martyred in Rome around 64, 65 AD. Well, then we also know that Luke was written prior to the book of Acts. So this automatically pushes Luke well before the 70 AD mark. A lot of people say Luke was written around 80 AD. So we know that these Gospels were written much earlier because Luke draws on Matthew, and Luke also draws heavily on Mark. So that pushes the gospel dates of Matthew and Mark into the 50s. And some people even putting Mark as near or as early as 45 AD. So the dating of the Gospels, the scholarship on the dating of the Gospels in the last 50 or so years, 70 or so years, is been dating them much earlier than 70 AD is what the standard was. So when we start looking at the dating of these things and looking at this, and when I was, and I shouldn't have poked so much fun at that, this date right down here, but that is the earliest date of the earliest gospel, which is the 52. I'm sorry, P52, which is written, the Ryland manuscript, which is around 130 AD. So the multiplicity of riches that we have compared to any other text from antiquity is exponentially higher than anything else. There's nothing even close, but yet we still get this argument about it. So how do we know who wrote the Gospels? Number one, there's no other attribution for them. And what I mean by that is that there's nobody out there that says that, well, this is the gospel that is attributed to Barnabas, or this was the gospel that is attributed to, I don't know, pick an apostle, James. There's no other attribution in any of the literature throughout history that says that those gospels were attributed to anybody else other than the writers that bears their name. There's no other attribution. Number two, the testimony of the early church fathers. And when I say the testimony of the early church fathers, there is an abundance of evidence from the early church fathers that were contemporaneous with the gospel writers. People who lived at the same time knew them.
In other words, we have the Ishnad chain. Okay, uninterrupted chain of transmission. Yeah. Right.
No. This isn't an isnad chain. This is an oral tradition. This isn't so and so said. So and so said. No,
I get you.
I get that, but I understand what you're saying and how that relates. But I'm not going to categorize Polycarp as an isnad because he actually wrote things down instead of recited them or memorized them. Okay. Thirdly, and then evidence within the Gospels themselves. And I'm going to cover that. I know this sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. I'm going to go through this really fast, folks, just so you know. So if this is ever brought up again in a conversation, email me and I will send you this slideshow. I have no problem doing that. I'm retired. I can work for free now. It doesn't matter. So when we look at the early church fathers, okay, you have Jesus Christ at the top. We always want to keep Jesus Christ at the top. But then you look at the apostles here. You have John and Peter, and then over here you have Paul.
Can you zoom that in? Because it's kind of small on our end. I'm even on my laptop. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Perfect.
Yep, you have Peter. Okay, you have Peter and Paul. They were in Rome when they died. So the first bishop of Rome is a guy known as Clement of Rome. History is so easy sometimes. But over here you have Ignatius of Antioch and Polycarp. Now Ignatius of Antioch and Polycarp both knew John. Now there's another guy that should be over here by the name of Papias, and we're going to talk about him here in a couple minutes. And then if you look at who the student for Ignatius, Polycarp, and Papias was, and it's this guy right here, Irenaeus. So when we look at these charts here of who these people were and who learned from who, you got Justin Martyr, Tatian, the author of this book right here. Hold on, I'm going to hold it up so everybody can see it. Of this book, come on, get over here. Come on, Kafir. The Diatessaron. Now look when Tatian. Oh, I guess it doesn't. Well, Tatian lived around. He was actually contemporaneous with Irenaeus, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Okay. So if you look at when these guys lived, Tatian died 185 AD. Irenaeus dies 202 AD. And this just gives a long laundry list of how many times they reference the New Testament in their writings. If you look at Eusebius, Eusebius was just an animal.
Wow.
I mean, he's the guy that basically quotes a lot of what Papias had, and we're going to talk about him in a second. So Clement of Rome lives at the same time that Peter and Paul were in Rome, becomes the bishop, and he himself is martyred in Rome. I think they drowned him, is what I think they did. So when we look at the early church fathers, this is kind of a short list, gives you the idea of when they lived. So Clement of Rome, could he have known the apostles? Yes. According to these dates, he could have known the apostles. Ignatius, could Ignatius have known the apostles? The quick answer is yes. Polycarp, could Polycarp have known the apostles? Yes, he could have. Papias, according to these dates, could he have known? Yes. So you have four people right here that could have known the apostles. Then you have Justin Martyr. Now he's born after the death. Well, they think is the death of John. So some people put the death of John like at 105. I don't know if it's that late, but let's just pretend and say it is. And then Irenaeus, who is a pupil of Ignatius, Polycarp, and Papias, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian, Hippolytus of Rome, who was a pupil of Irenaeus, and we'll talk about that. And then, of course, Origen. So when we look at how we put all this together, all you have to go, and this is a very cool website, cool book. It's called Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wallace, who used to be he's a retired police officer, and this is what he used to do. He used to put cold cases together, cases that have not been solved, and that they just have evidence. The witnesses aren't around anymore, so you just have to go by what statements they made. And so what he does is he talks about Papias, Polycarp, and Ignatius to begin with. And when you look at what he says,
just to pause real quick, and to interpret this in Muslim terms, this is the Sahaba. Okay, and these are unbroken chains. That's what I'm trying to stress here. And these are even more unbroken chains, or better unbroken chains, and better Sahaba than what you have in Islam, by far.
Why is that?
Why is that? Well,
yeah, say it why.
Well, first of all, these dudes weren't out there killing and raping and pillaging and plundering. That's point number one. Point number two.
Yes.
That's not why, though.
Point number two. Okay. All right. Is they were being hunted. Okay. They were the ones that were under threat of death and execution. But if I miss something, bring up why that is why it's better. But that's
okay. Well, there's a couple other reasons. Number one, they wrote down what they had heard. They didn't repeat it. This is not an oral tradition. It's written down within the lifetimes. Could have been written down within the lifetimes of the apostle, but most certainly within a couple decades of the apostles. That's the first. That's the third reason we would go with. And the fourth reason is that when we look at what we have as far as their writings is concerned, it's written down early. So number one, we have writings, not oral traditions, and we have and the writings. So let me see. We have the writings, which aren't oral traditions, and the how near they are to the events in which they comment on. When you look at the Hadith were not compiled until 2.5 centuries after the death of Muhammad. That's 25 times as late as these guys are writing. At least 20. And those are oral traditions. Those have nothing to do with eyewitness testimony. That's just oral tradition. He said, you said, they said, he said. And all of this is just hearsay evidence. It has nothing to do with reality, just stories made up. And you know how legend and lore can creep into anything unless you write it down. So when we talk about these guys...
And that's something Papias, that the Arabs did not learn.
What's that?
Yeah, that they didn't write it down, so they don't have nothing to back up anything.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Did you know J. Warner Wallace is in God's Not Dead 2? So if you want to see him, he's in that movie too. God's Not Dead 2. He's in the court scene.
Is he really? I got that movie over here.
You probably will like it because it's defending.
Go ahead, I'm listening to you.
I was saying it defends the is Jesus real or not? They have a whole court case because a woman basically, Clarissa explains it all.
God's not dead.
The second one, and they're in a court case.
There's a second.
Yeah, they're in a court case, and they basically, he comes and he's a person who is for the defense, where he's like, yes, we can do a cold case file to prove that Jesus existed and was crucified and stuff. So it's an interesting scene to see.
Wow.
I could have sworn somebody gave me that movie at one time.
You should see it. God's Not Dead too. So I like it a lot.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm going down deep here. Here in the Kaffir cave. Boy, it smells down here. I can't find it. I could swear that I could swear that I have the second one. I just have, somebody gave it to me a long time ago, and I just never got around to. I'm going to watch it now.
You should watch it, and you'll see who, and he makes
it on Amazon or Netflix.
He makes it,
and the guy's so articulate too. I mean, he's I don't know. He's a good guy. Okay, so all right. So these three characters.
The Hadith too. I think the interesting thing about Hadith is what we have to know is about Sahih Bukhari. So Sahih Bukhari starts collecting these Hadith from all these people. He goes around on like this kind of adventure, and he picks it up from people, and then he kind of decides who is adequate to put in his compilation. So if like someone spit on the ground or something, this is what was known for. He said, I won't use that person as a contributor. So really the whole point of, and I was having a conversation about this today, the whole legitimacy of Hadith is not based on necessarily the accuracy of the information, but the accuracy of how good the
transmitter.
Yeah, but the chain of transmitter it doesn't test memory. It doesn't test any of these things. All it tests is this was a good person. So, but being a good person doesn't mean you have a good memory. So there's really no examination of, is this information adequate? Because like, take all of us, we probably will forget stuff and then we'll fill it in. We'll fill in the gaps of our information with something that may not really be true. This is something that's scientifically proven. So that's a possibility that I think is really weird. I would be curious. I would ask, because I've been trying to ask scholars on this, and they just don't really have an answer for this. They're just like, oh, they're good people. But I'm like, look at, we play a game as kids called Telephone or Whisper Down the Lane, where you whisper into one person's ear, into the next person's ear, and then the information at the end is completely different than it was in the beginning. And it's like, what is the way to defend against that particular argument? And I haven't seen one yet. So I'm waiting.
We did this in the first grade. My school teacher was teaching all of us that you go by hearsay, hearsay, hearsay. And we did that. And it came out so different.
Well,
first grade.
Here's the thing on that. Okay, true oral traditions, you can maintain some form of accuracy if you, but the accuracy is only limited to the regional institution, the regional, you know what I mean? Okay, and it can contain certain accuracy, but here's the thing with this. There are, if you study archaeology, there are many civilizations that we have found, okay, that never left a written record, or ones that we haven't discovered. The Etruscans, for instance, never left a written record. We know very little about them, and they were pre-Rome, and they were actually, we know certain things only because of the monuments they left and the cities they left, so on and so forth. But they left no written record, so we know nothing about them. Okay, and there are many Native American peoples didn't leave a written record. We know very little about them. There are peoples pre-China, pre-Mongol that existed. We know very little about them because they did not leave a written record, or one that can be discovered, one that can be found. So this whole oral tradition thing, this whole relying on that as preservation, okay, of a text is completely bogus and bunk. Not only that, but have you ever watched these competitions that they have on recitations, okay, of the Quran? Have you ever listened to someone who's doing the recitation? They always get corrected by somebody else. And how are they doing the correcting? They have to go to the written text and say, here's what's wrong. Why do you know what I mean?
Well, okay. I'm gonna address that real quick if I can.
All right, sure. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. No. When we look at these competitions that they have today, and we have the written record, and people can quickly identify where mistakes are made. In the past, they didn't have that, did they? They just had the oral record. And when we look at ancient civilizations, and I'm going to give Islam a little bit of legitimacy here when it comes to oral tradition. People in the past had a tendency, on average, to have absolutely amazing memories as far as what was said and being able to memorize things. And it wasn't because they were smarter than us or anything. It was out of necessity. You would have to memorize these things because you don't have any paper to write things on, or you're illiterate and you don't know how to write. So
and you didn't have TV, the internet, cell phones, and every kind of
right.
Other kind of crap,
now today, people's memories are terrible. To get people to memorize biblical passages is in the
or
Bible,
even
like
just a phone number, or even just a phone number. Think about that. No, we had to memorize phone numbers. I don't know my own phone number on my phone. But I could still recite you 3 of my old phone numbers when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Okay, because you had to memorize that stuff. You had to know that, or write it down in an address book. Yeah. But seriously, you can't do that. There's so much we lost. Yeah.
When I was
as long as
a kid,
I got an internet connection, I got everything.
I'm not going to say what it was, but I mean, I can remember my phone number when I was in elementary school.
Mine was 56. What is 567 3099?
09 867 3099. Yeah, I love that song.
Okay, 2 more things on that. 2 more things, and we'll get back to the slideshow. Okay, so the people, and I will admit that the people back then did have a lot better memories than what we do today. This much is true. I get that. But when we start talking about, okay, how do you know? I mean, how can you prove that what they are saying is correct? Couldn't theirs be legend, lore, hearsay also? So we get this mantra coming back to us saying, well, it's the science of the hadith. Oh, okay. Can you explain that? Well, it's the transmitters. But they never tell you. Number one, there's no rubric for this to describe. This person has to be able to do this. Or there's nothing in writing about how they arrived at these. Whether the hadith is daif or if it's sahih or whatever. They just say, well, the science behind this says that, like Rad was describing before, they had to have a certain reputation. You had to have a notable or a knowable chain of isnads. But we still don't know. You cannot prove that. And also, I would point out that we do not have any of those originals, just like we don't have any of the original copies of the Quran. And we don't have any originals of the hadith. And the first hadith is that extant manuscript of hadith that we don't have until 400 years after the death of Muhammad. That's how bad it is. Yes, it's that bad. And
if we tried to pull that, they would, they would be condemning us.
Oh, yeah, easily. Here's one of the arguments that the Imam made on that show that night. He was trying to, because we were talking about the crucifixion. He says, well, you have the Basilides. The Basilides said that Jesus wasn't crucified. The Basilides were a heretical group that lived in the 2nd century over in Egypt, or they started in the 2nd century over in Egypt. And we don't have any writings from them. Nothing. The only thing that we have from them is a commentary by, I think it's Irenaeus, it might be Tertullian. I can't remember, but Hippolytus. Hippolytus is the one that commented about it. That says that these people believe this, but we don't have their original writings. And he was using that as some type of refutation for the Gospels. It was a joke. All right, let's get back to this. Okay, so we have these three early church fathers. All 3 of these guys knew the disciples, or could have potentially known the disciples. We know that these 3 jokers here knew the Apostle John. We do know that. They could have potentially known the other ones, but they did know John. Now, Papias lives in 60 to 135 AD. He was known as a hearer. if that's such a word, of John. He was a friend of Polycarp. He eventually becomes a bishop. He was familiar with the oral testimony of the eyewitnesses when the documentation or for the documentation of their accounts. And he writes a 5-volume treatise called Interpretations of the Sayings of the Lord. We do not have any of these copies. So how do we know they exist? Well, we know that they exist because Eusebius, the church historian, had them and quoted extensively from them. So we do know that they did exist, and we do know that they were quoted from by Eusebius, and we do have the writings of Eusebius. And so what we look at Papias confirms the Gospels, and he's one of these guys that you can say, okay, this is a chain of custody. When you're in law enforcement, you have to have a chain of custody for evidence. For an example, let's say I arrest Rad, and he's in his biker gang, and I pull a gun off of Rad. Well, that gun, when I arrest him, I have to write.
Dude, I tell you stuff in confidence, man. See, this is what I'm talking about, dude. You know what I mean? You know, the whole part of being a part of a secret super organization with my patch on the back is that you don't mention super secret organization on the internet. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
There's a reason why I brought that up, because anyway. Okay, so I arrest Rad. He's got a gun, and I take that gun and I write a receipt for it. I have to have a copy of the receipt because I'm taking this from him. I give a copy to him, and then when I go to the evidence room, they have the copy also. Now it's done all electronically, but this is when I was an MP. This is the way we did it. And now they, in order to accept that, they have to sign that they are accepting this piece of evidence into the evidence room, and then they're going to go put it on the shelf, and they're going to catalog where it is. Well, every single time there's somebody that goes into the evidence room, they have to go in and they have to catalog, verify all of the pieces of evidence in that room. That is what we call a chain of custody. You have to have so-and-so write it here. I saw it. Okay, now you're taking over. This is what you have. I am confirming. So you have a chain of evidence. So when we talk about Papias is one of these guys where we can say, hey, look, we have a chain of evidence here. All right, let's go to the next. So when
it's almost
Papias,
like it's almost like what Papias all these right over people. Here. Yeah, you know, with other people writing about the apostles and about Jesus. It's like
what do you mean?
Islam has tried to copy us, what we were doing, you know, with Papias and all this. And so now they have, you know, all their hadiths and it's with their chain of da-da-da. It's like they're trying to copy us, not today, of course, but way back when. You know, I mean, everything is just a copycat trying to copy us.
I would agree with that to an extent. Jay Smith does a good job of analogizing what let's say the biography of Jesus would be, the red letters would be, as compared to the Quran, the Hadith, the Sirah. I'm not exactly how he puts it all together, but he makes a great analogy, something that what you're doing right now, as far as, you know, what would be equal to what. So when we start talking about the life of Jesus, that would be the Sirah, and we would find that in the Gospels. People that live with him tell us, you know, what he did. The only difference is that our Sirah was written within a couple decades of Jesus's life, and their Sirah was written 2 centuries after the death of Muhammad. So there's a big difference there. Well,
it was like at that century, that's when they decided to copy us, to do what we had done.
I don't. Well, you could make that argument. I see where you're going with it. I would draw back a little bit on what I said was 2 centuries, because it was Ibn Ishaq wrote about a century after Muhammad, and then Hisham took Ishaq's writing and then created his own Sirah, and this is what we get with the biography of Muhammad. But that's just a correlation that they have. Okay, let's go back to this chart and look at Sir Polycarp. Now, Polycarp lived 69 to 155 AD. He was a friend of Ignatius and Papias. He's a student of John the Apostle. And he was converted by the apostles himself. He was going to become the bishop of Smyrna, and he writes a letter to the Philippians. This isn't not to be confused with the epistle to the Philippians by Paul, but in this letter he references 14 to 16 New Testament books. Now look at what he references: Matthew, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians. So you can see that you have early attestation of many of the first books, or many books of the New Testament. And that's just from that one document from Polycarp. So when we look at Polycarp, he again demonstrates that these early texts were in circulation and were familiar to all of Christianity. Well, not all of Christianity, but most of Christianity at this time. And again, you have a chain of custody being set here. So here you have Polycarp. Papias would be over here. Here's Polycarp. Now look at, here comes Ignatius. Ignatius lives 35 to 117 AD. He was a student of John also, and he becomes a bishop of Antioch. He writes all kinds of letters to the early church, and we have 7 of these letters today. These letters are important because they tell us that these New Testament documents were already in circulation and were familiar to many Christians at that time. Now look at the books that he quotes from or alludes to: Matthew, John, Luke. So there's 3 of the 4 Gospels. One's left out is Mark, and we're getting to that one. And he lists several of Paul's epistles also. So we have all kinds of evidence from Ignatius.
If not all. It says, if not all. Wow, yeah, of Paul's letters.
There was,
amazing.
Well, there's a couple of them. I think there was, I think 2 Corinthians, and there was another one. I was reading it today. I can't remember exactly which one it was off the top of my head that he did not reference. But I mean, if you're gonna reference, let's say 12 of the 13. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's suffice for me. You know, yeah, just say shut your pie hole. He cites them all. Okay, so you have Ignatius, Polycarp, and Papias. They know the Apostle John. So we have a chain of custody here demonstrating who wrote at least 3 of the 4 Gospels. But notice who their pupil is. Ignatius, Polycarp, and Papias all taught Irenaeus. They were all contemporaneous with Irenaeus, except for maybe Ignatius. I think Ignatius might have died by then. But anyway, he's born in Smyrna. He was a hearer of known as a hearer of Polycarp, and he remembers hearing Polycarp talking about his conversations with John. He was an important apologist, and he writes an entire work. This is where we get a lot of the information about a lot of the early heretical groups, the Gnostics, and a lot of the apocryphal writings, because of the heresies that came up. So here's where we get a lot of those informations that Muslim apologists like to use. They
love to delve. Yeah, it's so funny that they'll just focus on the heretical writings. If they want to get to truth and get to more truth back in those days, it's funny why they'll just only stay with the heretical writings. They won't go with, like you're talking about, the hearer, these people that heard, all these other men. That's what our dear Aladdin does. It's like, Aladdin, these are all heretical people. They're heretics. They're heretics. They're against God and Jesus.
Well, I just want to comment on this really quickly.
Hey, okay, before we go, Red, I'm putting Rob K's comments from the chat up there. Go ahead.
No, that is great. The red letters equals the hadith. Yeah, exactly. And the epistles are the tafsir.
Exactly. And the Acts is the early church history.
Exactly. I mean, no, they've broken this stuff up. Yeah. Okay, so regarding this, actually, no, put that screen back up. Okay, so I'm using my notes here. Okay, so here we have, chain of Ishnat, Polycarp, who studied at the foot of John, right? I believe that is the phraseology, or grew up under John, learning this stuff, all right, etc. And then we have him passing it down to Irenaeus, I call it Irenaeus, I don't know why, etc. And then Justin Martyr. But here's the important thing when it comes to heresies. When Muslims point out that they were early church heresies, they're going from people that are arguing against Polycarp, Ignatius, and Irenaeus, who is a direct line of transmission, what they claim to uphold. What they claim to say, this direct, unbroken chain, all right? There is no secular scholar, there is no atheist scholar that studies this stuff that would deny, this chain of transmission, of the New Testament text or of the Christian faith. But so they pull up these individuals or these groups that came later, right? And say, well, no, see, there were Christians who believed this, that, and other thing. First of all, no, they weren't Christians; they were heretics, plain and simply. Secondly, these heretics do not believe what Muslims believe. Remember, Muslims that believe this Islamic Isa. They actually they actually believe that Christianity or the true followers of Jesus will be victorious, over the heretics, etc. So they believe this is happening. But, these groups died out very quickly. And here's another thing. These groups died out. Well, several reasons they died out was one, because the church cut them out. The church, rightfully so, they wrote against them and they cut them out. They disfellowshipped them. So in other words, they said, you go, you be your own group, Jehovah's Witnesses. You know what I mean? Stay away from us. But when the persecution came, because they were still calling themselves Christians, what happened? They said, no, we're really not Christians. We don't believe that stuff. We'll kiss the ring of Rome. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, listen, dying for what you believe doesn't prove what you believe is right. It just proves that you're willing to die for what you believe. You really believe it. But these people, all these heretical Gnostic groups, all these heretical Gnostic groups, they did not survive the persecution of Rome. They didn't survive it. They quickly denounced their faith, re-embraced paganism, kissed the ring of Rome, because they didn't believe what the hell they were teaching. You know what I mean? So I think I just need to make that a very important distinction on that matter, and that's it. Sorry to madden you.
Well, that is a very important thing. We're going to get to the persecution when we start talking about the preservation of extant texts, or the text in the early church. Okay, so let's go back to this. All right, so when we look at Irenaeus, of course, he against heresies. This is a response to the heresy of Gnosticism and other issues that dealt with the authority of Scripture, just as you were talking about. He also identified 24 of the 27 New Testament Gospels. Now, notice what he lists there. He does Matthew,
have
Mark, Luke, and John. So you have a guy that, when we look at, let's go here. He's right here. This guy is in direct chain. When you talk about the isnads, chain of narrations, he's right there, front and center. So when we look at this chain of custody, you have some of the best chains of custody that you could ever imagine from antiquity, from this time period in world history. I mean, it just doesn't get, when what's his name? Wallace, the guy that does the manuscript stuff. You guys know who I'm talking about. Not J. Warner Wallace. Mark Wallace? Not Mark Wallace. He runs the Center for New Testament Manuscript. Daniel Wallace. Thank you, John. You're a savior. I was going to lose my mind on that because I'd be thinking about the whole show, not being able to love Daniel Wallace. Yes. He starts talking about the embarrassment of riches that we have. This is how tight this case is. When people start trying to criticize it, they simply do not know what they're talking about, or they're purposefully being dishonest. I would like to think it's the former instead of the latter, but in some cases, it's the latter. Okay, so Irenaeus, he teaches a guy by the name of Hippolytus. Now, Hippolytus is born in Rome, and we all know what Rome was like at that time. He's a direct disciple of Irenaeus, and he is one of these first guys that opposed some of the Roman bishops who were trying to change the gospel to accommodate a lot of these pagan practices or beliefs into Christianity. And you want to talk about the center or ground. Yeah, exactly, Connie. The ground zero for this happening was in Rome, and so he gets this description or this categorization as being the antipope or the rival pope when we talking about people in church history, and of course he's a great speaker. He influences Origen of Alexandria, who's very influential. He also wrote a 10-volume treaty called The Refutation of All Heresies. So when you start thinking about all of these refutations of these heresies that are going on at this time, we have copies of them. And they tell us what the heresies were. And they compare those heresies to what they were saying, these early church fathers were saying, which what were acceptable epistles, gospels, letters that are included in our current New Testament. And notice what he has: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And does it give a number here? 24. He also lists 24. Okay, so here you have Hippolytus, you have Justin Martyr, Tatian, Clement of Alexandria over here. So when we look at the facts from these writers, so I'm going to go through this really quick, folks. There's like 50 of them here, but here are the facts from what these people wrote about. Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit. He was star announced his birth. He was baptized by John. He was humble, sinless. He spoke the words of God, taught on the Sermon on the Mount. He was omnipotent. Ointment was poured on his head. He was unjustly treated, condemned by men. He was whipped, suffered, and was, right there, he was crucified. All of these people say that he was crucified, and he was, but when we say crucified, what does that sound like it refutes right there? Oh, I don't know.
All the Gnostics and Islam. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. That's why they cling to them. That's why they cling to the Basilides, the Marcinians, the what was it? The Nestorians.
But it can be argued that Jesus did die according to the Quran. But anyway, that's another discussion.
Wait, are you saying that these people died for what they believed? That they went to the cross?
Not yet.
They died in the most horrendous ways? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, Polycarp was burned at the stake.
Okay, I'm sorry. I stepped away.
If you've ever a great read, no, that's a great point, Brad. If you ever want to hear a great story, read about how Polycarp was put to death and what all transpired there. It is absolutely amazing.
Is that the one who said that? Well, okay, under Rome, under the persecution, they were trying to get them to deny. Well, they considered Christians to be atheists, right? Because they believe in an unknown God. They did not believe in the pagan gods, etc. Right. So they believed in the atheists.
Yep.
Was Polycarp or Justin Martyr who said because all you had to do was denounce atheism, kiss the ring of Rome, or kiss the ring of the emperor, or the statue, whatever. Is that the one that said, "I denounce all atheists," and he pointed to the crowd, or was that Justin Martyr?
Exactly. Yep. That was Polycarp. Yeah, that was Polycarp. Oh, wow. Yep. They gave him all kinds of opportunities because he was an old man when he died, for crying out loud. They felt bad for him. So yeah, you're exactly right. But they
still killed him.
Oh,
They
yeah,
felt bad for him, but they still killed him. And is this the Roman?
A lot of people did have empathy. Go ahead.
You know, now I don't study these early church fathers. You know, it's not my bent here, but just asking a question. So who are killing these people? Is it the Roman Catholics or just Rome?
No, Rome itself. Rome.
Okay, right. The Catholics didn't come until way later, right?
Oh yeah, correct.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is just
not
Rome.
Emerge until the Christian Church was not recognized. Let me put it this way. In 313, Constantine the Emperor Constantine recognizes Christianity as a tolerable religion, one that can be tolerated, not the official religion. It's not until 386, I think it's 386, the Emperor Theodosius finally recognizes Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire. So you have all this time period clear up to 313 at Milvian Bridge when Constantine has his vision of some of the most intense, as a matter of fact, the most intense persecution comes from the emperor right before Constantine, a guy by the name of Diocletian, and we're going to talk about him hopefully here in a minute. Okay, so let's look at some of the facts from these writings. Okay, Jesus died on a cross. And
can I ask another question? Why is Rome? Wanting to claim that Rome has a religion when they didn't have a religion before that time, right?
No, they believed in the pantheon of gods. This is what actually unified.
So then they whittle it down.
Empire was what unified the majority of Rome at this time was a common faith system in the pantheon of gods to accommodate that. But when you have a religion that discounts that and says that there's only one God, and that God is the God of the Jews, right? They're going to try to stamp that out. So when you start looking at all the early church writings that references the crucifixion of Christ, for example, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, who's a governor in Turkey, Asia Minor, he's writing to the emperor saying, look, I'm doing this to the Christians. Is this the right thing to do? You know, I'm giving them a chance to recant, but when they don't, I kill them. And the emperor's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Keep doing that. So
see, what you have to understand, Connie, let me just interject here.
Yeah, what turned it to where they decided? Other than Constantine, I know all that.
So Rome was an extremely tolerant, religiously tolerant. They tolerate as long as you kiss the ring to the emperor, you could have whatever gods you wanted. Okay? And as long as you put Roman gods in your temple of gods, and vice versa, they would actually incorporate anything that they conquered or became a vassal state or whatever. All of a sudden, in their main temples, their gods would be in there. They were very religiously tolerant, except when they came to the Jews. When they came to Israel, then forget about it. I mean, all the Roman emperors, right? Why did we make a treaty with these people? They're the most obstinate, stubborn people.
Because the Jews also said, the Jews, because the Jews, said there's only one God.
Exactly. Well, no, the Romans. There were a couple of instances, and this all broke out in riots, including not civil war, but including two rebellions, where one rebellion definitely where they put the gods, the pagan gods, in the temple and allowed sacrifices to these pagan gods in the actual temple, the Holy of Holies, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that, But anyway, so we digress on that. But no, Rome was extremely tolerant.
It's amazing God didn't strike them down, but I can see that He didn't because Christ came to save us, not to destroy us.
They were tolerant as long as you were accommodating to their gods.
Right, you compromised.
Accommodate, right? As long as
you compromised.
Great word.
Yes, and that's what we're doing today.
Yeah, as long as you
compromise your faith. Yeah.
Oh, there's one other thing.
And that's what the authorities are wanting us to do is to compromise with them. Okay, well, we'll teach your kids how to have sex at the age of 4, and they just want us to bow down and compromise, and there's no way. There is no way.
Well, there's one thing that needs to be mentioned on a historical perspective on this. Okay, so Rome was tolerant, as we've said. Okay, but Rome declared a religion as acceptable. It had to be ancient. Okay, in other words, it had to be ancient in the either the nations that they conquered or the city states that they incorporated, etc. Okay, or that they governed. Okay, Christianity, they considered it a new religion. So that's why it wasn't really acceptable. Not only that, but you had the fire under Nero, which really kicked this whole thing off, where first they blamed the Jews, and the Jews said, it's not us, it's those Christians. And no, seriously, that's what happened. They're like, oh, okay.
Target.
And that's when really I think that the break really became I don't want to say anti-Semitism per se, but really the break between Christianity and Judaism really broke, because remember, all these Christians, okay, we're Jews up until probably 70 AD. Again, with the incorporation of converts and so on and so forth. Okay, don't get me wrong in this. Of Gentiles, but predominantly it was still a Jewish faith up until the destruction of the temple. As a matter of fact,
I still consider it a Jewish faith.
Well, as a matter of fact, the Jews really resented the Christians, okay, during the sack of Jerusalem, because the followers of John at that time, right? I think it was John, or James, they fled. They wouldn't fight. They said, "We're out of here, dude." Right? Okay. They actually left Jerusalem. Okay. And that's another thing where it really turned against them. Okay. And it became this thing. And then, of course, you had the fire of Rome, where at first they blamed the Jews, and then the Jews said, no, it ain't us. We're a protected religion. It's those Christians. It's that cult, the cult of Christianity. And then they turn, you know what I mean?
I would have a question to ask you about
historical thing on that.
I would say historically, we know that the Jews were not monolithic. You have Essenes, you have the what are the Zealots, you have Pharisees, right. You have the Sadducees, the Perusian, the Pharisees. So you had multiple groups. I don't know if you could just say the Jews and that would be an accurate statement, because there were multiple groups of Jews, to be very fair and transparent.
But they're still Jews. I mean, now we're putting titles to them, like Pharisees and Sadducees, but they're still Jews.
No, but my argument is, I would say it's not the whole Jewish collective that did this.
Of course not. Of course not. Yes, you're 100% right, Isa. You are 100% right.
Predominant groups, the predominant groups, when the followers of James, okay, left Jerusalem under the persecution, or not persecution, under the Bar Kokhba revolt, okay, of 70 AD, okay, because that was going nowhere. Yeah, that was going nowhere quick. And even they turned
it actually lasted for 3 years.
It did, but it was clear it was Bar Kokhba. No, that was he is a Jewish hero, and rightfully so. What he did, okay, I mean seriously, he was fighting against the oppression of Rome, because Rome put up their gods in the Temple Mount. I mean, it was just too much, okay. But either way, as right as he was a revolt, there was no way this was going to work out. It was going to end poorly. You know what I mean? Even though he had great successes, but no way. Rome in their history, it's not gonna happen. Okay, but either way, when the siege of Jerusalem happened, the followers of James, and actually, I think that's why James was killed, wasn't he? He was thrown out the
temple. But he was thrown off by the Jews, though. No.
He was. He was thrown up by the high priest.
I don't think it was because of that. It may have. I can't remember.
Well, it was right around that time.
Of Christ. I mean, here you have the brother of Christ saying, "Yeah, that guy was the Messiah. I saw him after he died." They wanted to kill him. I don't know if it was because they sided with him or not.
Well, no. Well, what I'm saying was, it was right around that time, and the Christians of the time, especially the followers of James, they looked at that and they said, Jesus said, when persecution comes, flee to another city. So they fled to another city. They're like, we don't want no part of this crap. You know what I mean?
We got to get.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. We got to get through this. I want to get through this tonight. I'm gonna stay as long as I have to here. Okay, so let's get back over here. All right, so all of these people believe these things, that all the crucifixion took place under Pontius Pilate. They believe that Jesus died on the cross and was resurrected. They believed all of that. He had a physical body resurrection. It wasn't like these Gnostics believed that, well, he was just kind of a spirit, or maybe Simon the Cyrene took his place or whatever. No, they believed that Jesus Christ had a physical body resurrection. He appeared to Peter and the others after the resurrection. He encouraged the disciples to touch him to make sure that he was alive. And that the disciples, they all knew that the disciples were convinced of what they saw and were fearless after this. Now, that's the big difference between believing something and knowing something. These guys knew whether or not Jesus had died and was resurrected or not. Not that they believed it, but they knew it. And all of them, with the exception of John, went to their death proclaiming it. And they all saw him go to God the Father. They believed that he was a master, he's the Son of God, and that he's subjects everything to his creation. He's the door, the bread of life, eternal word, the Savior, Lord, God. Faith in his work on the cross saves us. They believed all of these things: the salvation, forgiveness, is grace from God, and he will judge the living and the dead. So they believe all of these things that are basic core value beliefs of the Christian church today. All these things were taught by the earliest church fathers. Now, when we look at the Gospels themselves, we have internal evidences that we can look at to determine whether or not they were written by those people whose names are ascribed to them. Matthew, for an example, he's mentioned by Papias, Polycarp, Ignatius, Irenaeus, and Hippolytus. We see organization within the Gospel of Matthew itself. Well, why is that a big deal? Well, Matthew was a tax collector. In order to be a tax collector, you had to keep careful records. In order to keep careful records, you have to be organized. So when we look at his Gospels, we see that his Gospels are separated by the sermons that Jesus gives, the parables, and then the 7 woes that he gives the Pharisees. The other Gospels refer to him as a tax collector or as Levi, which is from the tribe that he's thought to be from. But Matthew uses Matthew. He's the only one. He's the gospel. His gospel speaks of money more than any of the other gospels. And if you're a tax collector dealing with money, yeah, that's what you're going to mention more often in your gospels. And here's the thing: he wasn't a prominent disciple, yet his name is ascribed throughout all of the history of the church, the Christian church, as being the author of this gospel. One of the disciples that was really not that significant, but yet he gets credit for this gospel. Now, Mark is kind of I don't want to say slippery, but it's more difficult, I guess, to say that Mark wrote Mark. And the reason why is this is supposed to be the earliest gospel. But he is mentioned by Papias, Irenaeus, and Hippolytus as being the author of Mark. And we also know that this guy existed from the Bible, from the books of Acts, Philemon, Timothy, Colossians, 1 Peter. He's mentioned there by name. And Papias says that he is the interpreter of Peter. And when we talk about interpreter, Peter spoke Aramaic. John Mark could have been translating that into Greek, or he could have just served as a scribe. And a lot of people at this time had scribes. Even though they knew how to read and write, they did have scribes write for them. And here's the thing: the early church unanimously agrees John Mark was the writer. So that's kind of important. When the earliest church agrees that he wrote this gospel. Luke, well, he's mentioned by Polycarp, Ignatius, Irenaeus, Clement of Alexander, Tertullian, and Origen as being the author of the gospel. He's mentioned in Colossians. When you look at the books of Luke and Acts, they're written very in the same style. And here's the thing about Luke. Luke was a physician, so he uses very specific medical terminology in both the Gospel of Luke and in the book of Acts. So if you look in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 13, he uses to describe a condition that a woman had, these Greek words here, in the exact manner of Jesus' healing. These are medical terms in Greek. Not some type of let's say she had a lame leg. Well, there's a Greek medical term for that. I don't know what it is, but you have a leg that you can't use. There's a Greek medical term for it, and he uses that term. So that's how we have a good idea that it was Luke that wrote that.
That's amazing.
In chapter 14, a guy has dropsy. One of his side of his face is paralyzed. Well, there's a Greek term for that, and Luke uses that Greek term, medical term, not the layman term, but the medical term for it. So it's the same use as the medical terms, and that continues in the book of Acts. John. Well, Papias, Polycarp, Ignatius, Irenaeus, Hippolytus, and virtually every other single church father says that John wrote the Gospel of John. And he mentions that he is the one that Jesus loved. He claims to be an eyewitness several times in the Gospel. Number of water jugs at the wedding, how long the man at the pool of Bethesda was crippled, the name of the... So these details indicate that he was an eyewitness. You do not... Let me just... I'll turn my camera on here.
Say it, brother. Say it.
I'm just going to say, you do not find these type of details in the Quran. Period. This is the type of stuff that you get from eyewitness testimonies. You don't find it in the Quran. And we know he had to be Jewish because he identifies the significance of the water at the Jewish wedding. He says that Jesus was in Jerusalem at the Passover. He mentions Jesus fed the 5,000. He talks about the Festival of Tabernacles. He specifies the Festival of Dedication, which, another writer might just say it was winter, but he tells exactly when during the winter months it is. And he talks about how Pilate handed Jesus over to, how Herod, Pilate handed Jesus over to be crucified. There we go. And then he also, these are several other reasons why he had to be Jewish. Now, one of the things that caught my eye, there's a video that was made, and I can't remember the name of the video was. I'd have to go to my Amazon. I think it's called Before the Wrath. I'm fairly certain it's called Before the Wrath. And in this video, it describes the process of weddings in Cana. One of the most common objections we get to the deity of Jesus is saying, oh, he wasn't omnipotent. He didn't know the day or the hour of the return of God.
And then he explains the day and the hour.
Yeah, quit making
in a sense.
You're right.
In a sense,
yes.
yes.
You're right. Well, but that refers to when Jesus is referred to as the bridegroom and the church being referred to as the bride. This movie goes through this process, how even though the bridegroom and the groom, or the bridegroom and the bride, were given to each other in betrothal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were engaged. Okay, it was the father of the groom who would give the day and the announce hour, or announce when the wedding was going to occur. Wow. So when you tie that into this Jesus didn't know the day of the hour, he's referring to the wedding process in Galilee, for crying out loud. Okay, I'm off subject here. All right, let's get back to this.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is. And it's amazing how ignorant.
Shows the Father and the Son.
Well, it shows the relationship of the Father and Son, but it also shows the relationship between the groom, Christ, and the
bride.
church.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And it's the Father is going to say to Jesus,
yes, there you go.
When you are going to return. That's
and him even talking about, okay, no man, one gospel says not even the Son. In one gospel, in another gospel, they don't have Jesus saying that. So I just kind of keep it a balance with me, just in my spirit, man. But he even started the conversation, and everybody else wants to pick on what he said.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, he's the one that started this. Now you want to try to find an argument in what he's saying?
Well,
this is God Almighty in the flesh. Hello. Moses even said, if you don't listen to him, you're going to be in a bad place. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. All right. So, and again, if you want this if you want the slideshow, just let me know. Email me at ericthecafer@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you free of charge. Maybe
but we have to have what's that program?
Patreon account. If I had to charge you guys like $50 per, would you say what, Connie? I'm sorry. What?
What's that?
I'm thinking of how to get rich here and supplement my income a little bit.
You know, I really think you ought to open up something because you're teaching us, and I think it's great. But anyway,
no, but this is so much fun to do. You have no idea how much fun this is for me.
Oh well, I'm having a blast making your introduction thingy. I'm almost done, and it is I think you're going to really like it.
I found a bunch of pictures for you. Okay, what were you going to say? We got to get going.
Well, what program would we use? Is that PowerPoint? Because I don't have that program.
PowerPoint,
if I wanted, would I have to have PowerPoint on my computer to use your presentation here? Okay.
You would, but however, if you have a Google account,
I do.
I can put it down. I can send it to you, and then you can download it using Google Documents, and it'll download it as a Google Doc. So you'll be able to do it that way. I think if I'm wrong, somebody in the chat, please tell me how wrong I am, because I'm fairly certain it'll convert to a Google Doc if you do it that way.
Cool.
And if I'm wrong, we'll figure out a way to do it.
I want to say that I appreciated this presentation. It's really nice. I hope we have more of these kind of informational presentations.
I'm not done yet. Hang on, Isa.
Oh, we're not done? Okay,
we're not done, sir. Let me go.
Okay, no, I just do really appreciate this because it's been a while since I've reviewed this stuff, so it's good to go back over it.
Stop. I will stop maddening the show, but go ahead, continue on.
What happened to your name? I thought it was Dr. Radical Madden. Now it's your.
I'm changing. It's a new me. It's a new day.
Oh, you're a doctor. Wow, you sure are. Do you have a doctor's degree in college?
Yes, I have a doctorate in abnormal
so you've been
psychology.
ruined.
No.
So you've been ruined, huh?
No, I have a doctorate in abnormal
Did they teach you how to lie?
Connie, listen to this.
I have a doctorate in abnormal psychology from psychotic state, signed by L.S. Dementis. Do the initials, signed by LSD.
So does that mean no?
No, I actually really do. I have a doctorate in craziness. Okay. Yes.
Sometimes I don't know to take you as a joke or to take you seriously.
No, it's very hard to take him seriously sometimes, but it's just hilarious the way he said it. Psychotic state. I love that university. I feel like going there myself. Here's Dr. Demento. Yeah, I remember listening to that show, the Dr. Demento show. That was okay. Let's get back to this.
He recommended me. Actually, I got a recommendation from him. That's how I got into the university.
I was thinking there's some type of connection there.
Real quick, Eric, did you make Gedaliah one of your moderators? She is awesome.
I think
she's actually one of my best friends for like 5 or 6 years now.
I think she's. I don't see her here tonight, but when she does come, I'm fairly certain
she is. Okay, good.
I'm fairly certain.
I wanted to plug that in. Yeah, she's awesome.
Hold on, let me.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
she's like my number one.
Number one son. Okay. All right. So John. Okay. He also introduces Aramaic words like Rabbi, Rabboni, Messiah. Kephas. So when we look at John, when we start looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls and the imagery that we get from them, John uses the same imagery, like light versus darkness, children of God versus the children of Satan. He uses those same words. And one of the things that the theories that are out there was 2 Johns in Ephesus, John the elder and then John the apostle, and that theory is essentially blown out of the ground because all of the apostles were referred to in all of these writings as being elders. So people who tried to say that John didn't write the Gospel of John because we don't have the right John, shut your pie hole. You don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. He was also close to Peter. When we look at these quotes here, John is a significant apostle, just with his relationship with Peter himself. And he's also mentioned by a lot of the other church fathers, Tatian, Tertullian, Clement of Alexander. So when we start looking at these guys down through here, they all affirm his what do we call it? The Apollicity. Apostle, what is a fancy word? I can't pronounce it right now. Origen's in there, Theophilus of Antioch, and then when you look at the anti-Marcionite prologue to John, he's right there too. So also, and here's something that I find absolutely astounding: John is in the biography of Muhammad.
Yes.
Muhammad admits in the biography here that John is one of the apostles and is responsible for writing the gospel. It says, among these which have reached me about Jesus, the son of Mary, stated in the gospel.
Oh, hello.
Which he received. Yeah. So, yeah, John's right there. All right. So the original. So when we start talking about the originals, the original copies of the gospel, they were destroyed. They were destroyed. That's just the bottom line. And also you could say that the ability to survive 4 centuries is just absolutely impossible because they're written.
Well, here's something though, real quick. Even if archaeologists, historians, or whatever were to find, the original handwritten or scribe written notes, dictation of any of the gospel writers, it would still be saying, no, this isn't the original. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? You could not say that. Okay. I mean, it would say, well, no, this is not, so it makes no sense to go to that argumentation. It really just doesn't. I mean, seriously, Muslims. Okay, you say the Quran is a recitation. Ikra means recite, right? Okay. Then I want the original sound of the angel Gabriel telling Muhammad what to write or what to read. Okay, and if you cannot produce that, the original, not somebody says 1400 years later what he's coming out of his mouth. I want the original air vibrations, that happens when you talk, that when you make a sound. I want the original wave function, of the sound waves. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah. So unless you, even if you can pull up an MP3 recording of it, I will still request the original wave function, of the sound. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and the point I'm trying to make here is that papyrus was a very unstable material to write on. And I'm going to say unstable, but it just does not last long. It's just dried out leaves stacked on top of, pressed onto each other. So it becomes very brittle, very, very fast. Second thing is persecution. The early Christian church, just as Christians today suffer intense amounts of persecution, the early Christian church suffered exponentially more. And it came to a head in 302 AD with Diocletian, the Emperor Diocletian. If you were caught with any Christian text, you were thrown into jail. If you were found to be a member of a church, if you were found, especially if you were a minister in any of these churches, you were thrown to the lions. You were killed. They made a sport out of your death is what they did. So when we look at and all of this persecution, admittedly, was not as intense as it was under Diocletian. And in some places it was not, we didn't see it at all. But if you look across the empire wide, the amount of persecution that the Christian church went through and the destruction of the Bible and their text was almost universal. And then to sit there and yammer about, well, we don't have any originals, shut your pie hole.
Yeah, that right there is a miracle in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Act of God.
To have anything surviving before the 4th century is a miracle. But yet, we got to have it. It's just insane. And then lastly, the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea. Now let's just look at that just for just a second. The Council of Nicaea did not decide the Trinity, as I heard on some live stream. I heard that on a live stream.
Amen.
The Council of Nicaea decided the Trinity, and then the church started persecuting people if they didn't believe in it. What an ignorant dolt. I mean, it's historical illiterate. And I was always told that if somebody says that the Council of Nicaea decided the Trinity or declared that Jesus is divinity, you're talking to an idiot, because they just simply don't know. And I heard that this week on a live stream, by the way. So when we look at all of these, this charge that's made, where are the originals? They were destroyed, or they eventually got wore out, because this was not a text that was protected by a state or an army or an organization that would kill you if you even disagreed with any of it. That's not how it worked out in Christianity. And nor did Christianity burn all of its original text to try to make sure that everything and everybody agreed with one another is what the Quran was supposed to say, or what the Bible was supposed to say. That didn't happen either. So when we start saying, well, there's some very few manuscripts that existed prior to the 4th century, yeah, and there's a reason for that. There's a very good reason for that. Okay, and then lastly, when we start talking about persecution, when we look at the persecution today, the 50 countries that conduct the most persecution on Christians, number one is over here. That's actually in North Korea. That's because they believe in emperor worship there of some sort, Kim Jong-dum or whatever his name is. But when you look at the rest of it, these are where our Christian brothers and sisters are persecuted for their faith today. I remember listening to Zachary Knight came up in the chat tonight about, what was it? Zachary Knight can be a doctor to soul for us all. Thanks, Rob. Zachary Knight said that they would not. The reason why they don't allow Bibles into Saudi Arabia is because they know that they're not true. And the reason why they know they're not true is that they proclaim the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And here's his argument. He says, since we know that the Quran is true and that the Bible contradicts the Quran, why would we allow a book into this country that we know is not true? This would be the same of bringing in math books that teach that 1 + 1 = 4. We wouldn't want to do that, would we? So therefore, we don't allow the Bible into Saudi Arabia. That is exactly what that guy, or something very close to what he said. This is justification why they keep Bibles out of these countries. If you're keeping Bibles out of your country, you might want to ask honestly, in your heart of hearts, why that is, before you start criticizing the Bible. Okay, so in conclusion, we have more evidence for the Gospels than any work from antiquity. The early church fathers' attestation is very early and often, and they all proclaim the deity of Christ and his crucifixion and his resurrection. And the bottom line is if you can't believe the Gospels, you can't believe anything from history. All right, that's it. I do have one more slide.
Very good.
Isaiah 53.
Everybody.
Okay, guys. Yep, that's all right. That's it. That's okay.
Wait, how much time I got? Can I just add something, because I actually want to add something to this.
How can you add something to that? I mean,
not add to your presentation on the Gospels, but I just want to bring this into the Islamic realm on the Hadiths, and because I think this is very important. Real quick background story. I was researching the other day on the Islamic punishment for homosexuality, because Kenny had said something about it. I don't know why, I think, but so I'm researching this, and every website you go, if you go to Google and you search Islam punishment for homosexuality, you're going to find all these now, which you would not have found 5 years ago. You're going to find the main hits are all going to be on these woke LGBT mosques or woke LGBT Muslims saying, oh yeah, homosexuality is perfectly halal by Allah. You know what I mean? Or they'll say, it's something, we just leave it up to Allah. There's no death penalty and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, I know that's not right. And I'm Googling, I'm asking on Facebook. And all of a sudden, because Google Spy was spying on me, because I actually turned off my VPN. And no, seriously, I had to kill my VPN tunnel. Okay, so that means I was on the raw. okay, on the live. And anyway, I did the Google search again, and all of a sudden I get in my email from my Gmail from academia.edu, which I highly suggest you all sign up for, because you get all kinds of great articles, okay, from this. Well, I get this article on, well, guess what? The title is, let me scroll up here. I should have done this like this. A pre-modern defense of a hadith against sodomy by Jonathan A.C. Brown. Now, do you guys know who Jonathan A.C. Brown is? See, a lot of people don't know who he is. Yeah, but no, he is a predominant Muslim scholar. Okay, he teaches at Columbia University. I mean, this dude could probably issue. He's actually more academic, okay, than Yasser Qadi. Okay, he doesn't play around. Okay, this dude highly researched. He's a total academic. Okay, everything, but he's a convert. So they kind of look the other way with him. But seriously, this dude comes up with seriously in this. But anyway, so this is his paper in defense of this, which he published in Islamic magazine or whatever, in defense of the early Islamic scholars. Well, here's the thing, as he points out, as he writes about this, there is now this modern progressive change, okay, in Islam that has happened. He published his article, I think, in 2016, I believe, okay? But it's been ever growing, just like in the Christian church, okay? Regarding the acceptance of homosexuality. So he writes about this where they're rejecting these hadiths, okay? All right? Oh, I lost it here. Sorry, I just had it, but I had to scroll up. Okay, but anyway, so he lays out the actual punishment. Progressive contribution to criticism hadith. Okay, all right. Let me pull it up. Let me just give me a second here. I will find it. Okay, here we go. All right. So he goes over this the progressive attack against these authentic hadiths. Let me just read you this. Let me share it. Okay, so we can go over it together. Hold on a second. Sorry that took so long to find. Where are you at here? Share screen, Chrome tab. There we go. Okay. Can you share it? Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. So he goes over. We're just going to go over one. Okay. So, but these progressive modern Muslim scholars are rejecting all these hadiths. Remember the hadiths. We have a science. Blah blah blah. We accept this. Okay. Well, no. Now the modern progressives are rejecting it. Okay. But here's his defense of this hadith on killing the homosexual. Rating of Ibn Abbas hadith of killing the active and passive partner. The most famous hadith on liwat, which is homosexuality, was narrated by the Prophet by Ibn Abbas. It reads, "Whoever you found committing the act of the people of Lot, kill the active and passive partner." Okay? Now listen to this. All these people, okay, testified throughout history that this was an authentic hadith. The hadith of killing the active and passive partner was declared sahih by Ibn al-Jarud, lived in 307 or 919-20. Al-Tabari, Al-Hakim al-Nasiburi, Ibn al-Tala, Da'i al-Dibn Maqdis, whatever. Zayn al-Din al-Iraqi, yeah, that's the only word I can pronounce, al-Iraqi, and al-Sutin, all listed the text of al-Suwulubulta trustees below. In addition, it was also judged to be sahih or reliable by al-Jarara, 360-970. It is one of the hadiths he presents as suitable for use as proof. Ibn Abd al-Hadiri of Damascus, okay? Zaki al-Habad, okay? The various narrations on the topic all compensate for each other's weakness. In other words, okay, like somebody brought up, I forgot who it was, I think it was you, Issa, where, okay, all of a sudden I reject this hadith because the guy spit on the ground. Okay, you know what I mean? Okay, but no, this is a serious, all these Islamic scholars, these are, you can, some of them I know, but you can Google all of them, and they are solid, sound Islamic scholars of antiquity. Ibn Qayyim al-Jarawa, okay? Whatever. It meets the standards. Well, no, here. It meets the standards of al-Bukhari. And Ibn Hanbal use it as proof. Ibn Hajar al-Hatimi, okay? Etc. Ibn al-Amar al-Sasani, okay? And Muhammad Nasr. And anyway, the list goes on. And he lists all the footnotes and everything because he is a scholar, okay? And he goes on to other reliable things. But the point I'm making is, whenever a Muslim comes up to you and says, oh, that's not Sahih, well, what makes Sahih? It was Sahih, 500 years ago? And now it's not Sahih? Why? It was Sahih up until 1999 when the woke stuff started and all of a sudden the acceptance of homosexuality began, and it wasn't Sahih back then. I guarantee you, here's the funny thing. I remember getting arguments on Muslim because when this first popped up, if you Googled 5 years ago homosexuality in Islam, all the sites would pop up and say, this was haram, this is punishable by death, by Islamic websites. Now, because of Google and the algorithm, okay, actually, that's going to be the title of my book, I think, the algorithm. Okay? No, seriously. Now, all of a sudden, you got to dig down into page 3 of the search results before you even find a traditional Islamic site that says, no, dude, that ain't right.
Duck, go.
I love DuckDuckGo.
No,
what I would clarify for this situation, just to be fair, liwat means like sodomy, pretty much. So I think the argument, what scholars could say is, the Islamic scholars will say, well, there is no such thing as homosexuality. Homosexuality is a newer construction where people can actually have partners. So what they'd say is, yes, if you do a public sexual act, if two males do a public sexual act in public, they will be put to death because it's considered public indecency. And I'm just saying, just to be fair, to clarify this.
No. You are correct on that. But again, think about this. There's no word for rape in the Islamic literature. Okay. In other words, there would be no word for rape in English literature up until probably the 18th century. You know what I mean? Okay. But what I'm saying, so yeah, we are using modern terms of the English language. But yeah, face it. If you put your penis in another man's anus, you gay. I'm just saying. Okay. All right.
We're going to end the show on that note. I was just looking here in the Reliance of the Traveler. Let's see, the punishment for adultery, women getting stoned. Page 610, page 611, page 664. I was doing some searches this morning of all this, and then for sodomy, whipping is on page 611. But I was trying to.
This does also apply. This does also apply for male and female relationships as well. Don't get me wrong, but the focus of the concept on this, okay, let's face it, is on gay homosexual sex, okay, male to male. Now, here's the thing on this, okay? This later thing, this thing that you need 4 eyewitnesses, okay, that you need to actually see the penetration, okay, by 4 male witnesses.
Protecting Aisha.
Again, that is a progressive, modern interpretation, okay? All right.
It's an innovation. It's innovation.
Well, it's an extension. They wouldn't say it's an innovation, but they would say it's an extension. Okay. So all this. So my point is not to bring up this gay homosexual stuff because I can already see Eric saying I had a good show, man, and now you're bringing up this stuff. And what the hell, man? But no, seriously. My point is in this. Whenever they say the hadiths are sahih. They were Sahih when? They were Sahih 20 minutes ago? They were Sahih 30 minutes ago. When were they Sahih? Because clearly, these hadiths were definitely Sahih until about 5-10 years ago, and now all of a sudden, now they're not Sahih. What happened? What changed?
Let me
Nothing.
We gotta. Oh my goodness, we gotta go. Okay, let me just say this, and then we'll be done. You go to Reliance to the Traveler. You go to the Reliance to the Traveler, page 610. It says the penalty for fornication or sodomy, and it talks about stoning people to death. Okay, this is the punishment for it. And Adam brought this up. Or it might have been you. Might have been John, but it goes from identifying who these groups are from 12.2 to 12.4, meaning that they left 12.3 out, and it has a bunch of Arabic here, and it says that other acts that are not allowed are sex with an animal, dead women, anal sex, three-way sister. Having
what you can't have sex with two sisters,
lesbianism, and
I can't be
homosexuality. So that's included in the Reliance of the Traveler.
What? No sex with animals? Come on.
Okay, so what does it say? How many witnesses you need with sodomy and all of that?
I don't know. I'm not going to.
Okay, sure, that's no problem.
It's in the book.
Remember,
okay. 610. You said
that's later next.
Yeah, page 610.
Okay.
Yeah, that's later in extension, and nowhere in all the cases that are documented where people have been stoned to death for this. Okay, that didn't happen. But let me just end with this. Let's say that is the case. We live in a modern nanny state, okay, where the FBI is known to do this. They can wire up your whole entire bedroom with sound and ID 3 HD 4K video, so they can capture that and just view for witnesses. Watch the tape.
Okay, we're ending the episode here on Global Blog Talk Radio. We have to end it because we ran out of time. Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
I like that woman. She's cool.
I know. She's so polite. Get off my radio station. Have a nice day.
You silly
well, see, Eric, you only give us 2 days to do this, and then we get so excited to talk with each other again.
Yeah,
we need to do more, don't we? Don't we need to do more?
We ought to do something like putting
videos a week,
a network together. Like I've actually floated this idea.
Like Kenny does. That's a good idea.
Actually,
he's got a good idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I give Kenny credit for that. No, he
oh yes, yes, he has a great idea.
Kenny is a hustler. He is.
I think he's a very smart man.
No, he is. No, I do give him credit for the hustle.
I do too.
He is. No, David Wood. I thought David Wood had this together. Where didn't
I
he
thought
float
he would
this idea
too,
years
but I don't
ago,
think
or
I
just didn't do it. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he could have managed something, but then again, if you do something like that, it's going to get shot down by the trolls, especially if you do it on YouTube, because you know how we have to be careful on what we say is while we're playing music or playing other clips or whatever. Well, they'll just nickel and dime you to death by reporting you for copyright violations or whatever. They do the same thing on Facebook. So to build something up like that on this platform, on YouTube or Facebook, it's undoable because of all the trolls out there. They cannot stand the truth getting out, and I don't know if there was another platform that was popular.
We got other people together. I mean, we got Chris, we got Steve, we got Issa, you're a slacker. You don't have a YouTube channel yet, but neither do I. No, I do, but I have all kinds of offensive material on there, which we do not publish. But no, we got Steve, we got Adam. We got Steve, we got Adam, we got Jay. We got you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but those guys were successful. They have their own successful channels. So why would they want to, come under the umbrella of one? I don't see the advantage of that.
Well, no, that's the thing. We don't have it. Well, no, it has to be under the umbrella of one, but it doesn't have to be named the cross and the crescent. We could have a board. We could have you know what I mean? Where we have a plain thing of doctrine. Okay, this is what we believe. Okay, all right. We're not just Islamophobes that we're going to accept atheists or anything. Just that you know what I mean. Okay,
Yeah.
but you see what I'm saying?
We got to think about it.
So
I tell
it's
you what we need to do is we need to do. We're still broadcasting right now, so let me cut the feed here. Yeah, let me cut the feed here.